Hey everyone, Nick here at Movie Relics. So today we're actually going to do our podcast with David over at VIP. He's actually the vice president over there. And so what I'll do is I'll turn it over to him, do a quick little intro, and I'll let him start it off.
Yeah, I'm David Kaminke. I'm the vice president of VIP. If you haven't heard about us, we are an auction house that has been around since the early 2000s. We have done primarily studio auctions. We've worked with a number of studios from, MGM, MRC, Lionsgate, Stars, Fox, BBC, NBC, HBO. You name it, we probably worked with them at some point over the past 20 years. And yeah, I'm sure we'll go into more detail during this interview. But that's basically sell, screen use, wardrobe, and props to the collectors and fans of all these movies and TV shows.
Oh yeah, and I've definitely been a buyer multiple times. Whether it was during the auction or post auction things that came from you guys' auctions that I got later. But yeah, the most recent was the Vikings, which we're huge fans of. Obviously, we just did that little review on your guys' auction, and then you guys got that spring auction coming up. Where is this your first kind of like I would say collector consignment auction, or is it second? I don't remember how many of you guys have done second. Okay.
We did our first one in February. So we sold about 265 items in February. And our next one is obviously on May 11th to May 21st. And we have 348 items in this one. And we're planning on doing one every quarter, basically. So every 3 months. And we don't have really, we keep getting asked, are you guys going to keep it in that 300, 200 range, or are you going to keep expanding? And my answer is, as long as we get the right items, we'll expand as much as we can. So it's definitely a field that we're excited about and to get into and start getting closer with the collector community, as well as to complement our studio auctions as well.
Oh yeah, because you guys have been known for years, like almost 20 years now for doing the studio auctions, something like that?
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Yeah, and then you guys recently moved over from eBay to your own website, own platform, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So this past year, we've made a lot of changes. And honestly, a lot of it had to do with there's no movies coming out. So, and a lot of the TV shows didn't want to cancel necessarily because they didn't know what the content was going to look like, or if there's going to be other production starting up, when it was going to. So, a lot of the studios were holding on to things, just waiting to see what was going to happen, like multiple of industries. So when that happened, we kind of had to look at take a step back and where do we want to go from here? Because what if the studio auctions don't come back on for, at that time we were thinking 6 months, which has obviously been longer than that. And that was a big reason going to this platform, because it allows us to do these consignment events. And so last October, we actually opened our doors for Vikings. We had the thrones on display. So we allowed collectors and from all over, but we had some local collectors come in to check those thrones out. And they saw that we were going to do a consignment event in the beginning of 2021. And that kind of just opened the gates, and that's where we went from there. And with our website, we were really lucky to start with Vikings, because that's obviously a very, very popular show, and that brought a lot of people to our website. Because we've had, like we said, we've been on eBay for 20 years, and it allowed us to bring all those people over. So we've already gotten most of the people that we've reached through eBay onto our website. And we've even reached a lot of new people being off of eBay. So, and like I've mentioned, I would never say anything bad about eBay. We were very, very close with their entertainment memorabilia group. We had calls with them every month, and we were a part of their marketing plan. But doing things on our own website has given us the flexibility to do a lot more things. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but a lot of things we're planning on doing in the 6 months to going forward.
Yeah, just for everyone, watching this, we talked a couple nights ago, and we pretty much were like, yeah, we should have recorded this because we went in depth on everything. We just kept talking. It was like an hour and a half. I know you're saying, also with like consignments, it was kind of hard. You couldn't do that through eBay, and so these more the the fan auctions or the collector auctions where they can have the consignment. That was something that you're able to do now with the website and stuff like that, which I think is a huge plus.
Yeah, and I mean the elephant in the room. We with starting on a website, we added buyer's premium.
Mm.
And the reason for this is it allowed us to be more competitive with the studios. Some of our other competitors can give them a revenue split, having the buyer's premium on top, which we weren't able to do on eBay. So it's allowed us to stay competitive with the studios as well as with the consignment, the way it's structured. You need that buyer's premium on top for us to cover our costs of doing the auction and marketing your item and logging it and doing the cataloging, authenticating it, verifying it, and photography, all the steps that get to the point of us being able to sell your item and give you a check at the end of the day. So, but with that, with adding buyer's premium, we knew we were going to get pushback on that, obviously, because we didn't have that for the past 20 years. So, something else we've done the past year is really try to lower our shipping costs, which we've been able to do, especially internationally. And something we're using a third party, along with our UPS rates going down, some ways 50%. We've also gone with a third party that has been a cheaper option for people. It's I'm sure you've seen the checkout. We're calling it Economy. It's a great service. We've had no problems with it, and so it gives other people a cheaper option. Because what I've always said is there's movie fans all over the world, and they shouldn't be penalized for being not in the U.S. They should have the same level playing field to buy the item as someone in the U.S. or down the street from us. So, and then we looked at harmonization codes so they don't get taxed as much coming into their country. So, shipping is something that we've lowered the price on to cover that extra cost we've got with buyer's premium.
Oh yeah, and shipping, that's one thing a lot of people, you go into auctions, people a while ago I would say didn't quite mentally calculate the buyer's premium, also like while they're bidding. And then, they kind of I would say the shipping was an afterthought at that point. And, that was one thing I know with some of the other auctions, first of all, them not offering the shipping services, but then when they did get that third party set up, it was just so expensive. It sometimes almost outpriced the actual prop itself. I mean, I've gotten something from, oh yeah, like I think I got something a while ago from another auction house, and shipping ended up being, and it was actually for that Scorpion Toasty Skull, the production made one, and I think shipping ended up being like $500. And so I was, I was like, for this head, I was like, that's insane. But because that's the person has to drive from whatever postal service you use. They have to drive, pick it up, pack it, and that you get charged for all that. So that's huge that you guys do that.
Yeah, so that's something that we've been really working on to get that cost floor. And something else we've done the past year is just to look at what negative things that people said in the collector space about us. Just to see what we can work on. And shipping costs internationally was always something that people brought up. So we wanted to work on lowering that with people, because we're always looking for ways to make it a better experience for everyone.
Oh yeah. Shipping, yeah, it's always one thing that you always see a lot in the groups. It's usually like the thing that either kind of makes them upset or whatnot. But yeah, no, that's awesome. You guys do that, and and is your catalog released right now for the spring auction? Is it up and running?
It is up, so you can go to our website, VIPfanauctions.com. Go to the spring entertainment memorabilia event page, and the catalog will be there to look through all 348 items.
Okay.
To give people just more information, like we actually also started a payment plan as well, which we didn't have in the past, just to give people again more, if they want the item, they can spread out their payment. So that's for orders the total order over $1,000. So you can add as many items as you want, including the shipping, the buyer's premium, and any other fees that are included. If that's over $1,000, you can do a payment plan. We just ask for 25% up front, and then you get 3 months to pay off the rest. And then PayPal, which we use, has other options if your order total is under 1,000. So again, just other ways to give people ways to get the items that they love. So
Yeah, no, that's that's also a huge thing too. I know not every auction house offer that as well. So I mean, it sounds like you guys have been paying attention to the groups, been, paying attention to the collectors, finding out what they like and don't like. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a curveball at you right away. And I'm going to ask you, what is a certificate of authenticity mean to you guys at VIP?
the COA is something that we work with each studio on when we were doing primarily studio auctions. It basically, because there's nothing right now that when we sell the item that proves that that is from that show. Of course, you can show a receipt that you bought it from us, but it's something that we give with each item that certifies it as being from the show, and it has the description on that to say what it is. And that is something that we've also looked at the past year, and I'll be the first one to say it's somewhat flawed in a way, right? Because it doesn't have all the information needed, and you need to do your own research, especially if you're buying after we've sold it. You still need to, even if they say I have a VIP ID, VIP COA, you should do your own research because I think I've told you this on the phone. We're processing 12,000 items a year that we're selling, and the studio themselves, as accurate as they are, once the show ends, they have about 3 weeks to wrap it up and get it out of there.
Yeah.
So they're moving quickly. Oh, they have all of Character A's shirts in front of you. Jack Bauer's Hain t-shirts. They may incorrectly mark one as the screen use one, or the production use one, and it actually is the screen use one. So when we receive it from the studio, we don't take that information as like, yep, get it on the site. We use it. It's good information to have, but then we do our due diligence and actually to verify that that is correct information. And then we go through multiple steps to get it actually when it's up for listing. But there's been situations, I think I mentioned this to you on the phone the other day. Last week we got contacted on a Desperate Housewives COA that we sold to a customer from 2012. And he contacted us and said, hey, can you look at this? I watched this episode. It's actually this character. It's not that character. He was completely right. And we reissued him a COA and sent it off to. He was like, is there a cost to that? I said, no, that was our fault. And I apologize for that. So what I'm getting at is I'm not going to lie and say we never made a mistake. Every COA we've ever sent out is correct. So I think you still absolutely should do your own research, but we definitely put in our due diligence, and we get it from the studio and do all of our authentication. But there has been one or two that have, of course, slipped through the cracks in the past 20 years. But we don't get that example I gave you the other day. We maybe gotten that 5 to 10 times. So.
Oh yeah, and you guys are known for having pretty solid COAs and your research, and what a lot of and I've gone over in some of my other videos. It's a COA is an awesome starting point. It's a great way to know who it came from. Especially coming from, let's say, like an auction house like you guys, where you do get it directly from studios. I mean, there's already an established credibility. But then from there, there's also you guys have to process however many items in a short period of time. And it's humans doing the work. And that's what a lot of people don't really grasp. Humans are flawed in general. It's not like anything is malicious or purposely done, but it's just sometimes an error happens. And that's what a lot of people really got to understand about COAs. And COAs can be more viewed as, hey, this is as much due diligence, or this is what we have found this time to be up to this point. And it's a starting point, but like I said, there could be a really good starting point with, like, a COA from you guys or another very reputable prop dealer. But then there's also a bad starting point if it's from a dealer or a company that is known for not being very good at selling authentic items. So that's what and I kind of wanted people to kind of also hear it from an auction house like yourself, that there's gonna be, even with as something direct from the studios as you guys, there can be errors. But the thing is, though, is you guys are easily top three, in the sense of provenance and due diligence. And that's one thing is I like to hear it also from someone of your caliber, that errors can happen and you guys are more than happy to fix it. And it's not this fight against the collector versus, the auction house or the dealer. It's, hey, you showed us information. If we can switch it out for you, no problem. That's always great to hear, and especially for collectors out there.
I don't think we have no ego. Yes, we're experienced. We've worked with over 300 productions over the past 20 years. But yeah, the last thing I want is to pass on the wrong information. So if you have the correct information, and of course we'll verify you're right what you're saying. But yeah, we have no problem with admitting that we made a mistake, and we're looking into ways to improve the authentication with the COA. Like, we're going to add, I don't know if you noticed, but on our website we've added all of past auctions. We're keeping that information
I didn't know that.
on the site. Yeah, you can go to on our website, you can go to our auctions tab and go to past auctions, and everyone we've done since December is on the site though. So all that information is still there. But we weren't hiding the information. We just were on eBay, so we didn't have the ability to put that on our website. And we're looking at in the next 6 months to add all of our past auctions on. So there'll be over 100,000 listings on there for people to go through and find information about. Again, it's just with our own website, it gives us a lot more flexibility, and we have all this information, but we just didn't have a way to give it to the collectors. So we're looking at adding QR codes to COAs also, so you can also, if you have a COA, you can scan them and it will take you right to the listing to see all that information that you need. And again, it's just more information you can give. It allows people to do their research and make them feel better about their buying decision or where they're going to buy next. So,
I mean, as you know, as we talked about, and I talked to Elaine quite a bit, so she helped me research a Spartacus sword that I got that you guys did a long time ago, that Godzilla head. When I was starting out to purchase those, as I always tell everyone else, do your research, even if it comes from a reputable company like you. I was like, hey, can I get, the original listing details, information on this, so on and so forth. And I mean, she got it to me the same day, which is, like I told you, almost unheard of. But it was hugely helpful, especially when I was going after that Spartacus sword, because I know they repurposed some items during that series. And so it was really important for me to verify, that was Andy Whitfield's sword. And so, yeah, that was a big thing for me. But it's a service that I know I appreciate and everyone else appreciates too. That's one big thing that you guys do that almost sets you apart, is your customer service is just, spectacular.
That's really good to hear. And I'll definitely tell the team that, because we work hard at getting back to collectors and actually helping them. And we don't have actually dedicated customer service person. Whatever you ask, it gets designated to the person that's an expert with that question. So actually, everyone on our team is actually you're talking to at some point. You might be talking to me at some point through our customer service. So we have our whole team looking to help people out, because we want to, again, give that information and really help the collectors out. If we get questions, hey, I have this display coming up, I bought this from 10 years ago, I can't remember, did this piece go with that? And I'll happily send the images over there and everything they need. So.
And while we're on authentication, verification, due diligence, all that, moving over to doing consignments with private collectors, how has that been going? I know when we talked the other day, you said, I won't say bumpy, but it's different than working with the studios. So, I mean, what have you guys had to do to change processes, or what have you learned through doing consignments with collectors now?
Yeah, that was a huge thing because when we had that conversation, so we get it directly from the studio. And like I said to you, mentioned to you, we still were verifying the items because there were still mistakes when we got the items. I mean, we had situations with studios where they sent us 30 crates of all the wardrobe completely separated, pants in this box, shirts in this box, items scattered throughout, no labels. So we're used to having no information.
Right.
With the consigners, we have information from them, which is great, but it's not. There's that step in between. So it's always how did you get it? It started at the studio in the production. But how did you get it? So we always ask. That's like the first question we ask.
Right.
And
And that's how I start my research too. So
yeah, so you can start looking into it. And the good thing about us only doing studio auctions in the past, we have connections with hundreds and hundreds of prop masters, costume designers that we can say, okay, we worked with someone that had worked on that production, so we can reach out to them to help us out. And since we helped them out so much throughout the years, they're the best. I mean, all the costume designers, the prop masters that we worked with, and they're always happy to help. And because they take a lot of pride in their work and they want to make sure that the information is correct as well. So that gives us a good starting point. Okay, so you got it from them. Let's check the handwriting on it and all this stuff. Is there tags with it? We do ask for COAs, do you have an LOA, any of that information? Okay, so we take that into effect. We say, okay, send it in to us. We need a closer look because you got to see it in person. You have to have it in person to make the right call. And then our team will do basically all the research. Go, okay, now watch the movie and TV show. They say it's in this scene. Go up close because we have a system that records TV shows and movies that it takes a screen grab every millisecond.
Really?
So we can find that scene and do close up and make sure it matches that exact what they're saying. And yeah, we've had of course we've had situations where it's that awkward. We went there and that's not what it's not in that scene. Maybe you gave us the wrong information. Can you go back and find the screen grab and information like that? And for the most part, it's always like, oh, and I accidentally told you the wrong scene, or and absolutely, you're right. It isn't that. And we've caught handwriting incorrectly in items and the names incorrect. And it's just funny going back to them, like, I've never noticed that. Like, oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah.
That isn't right. So it's like we're almost authenticating for people while we're doing consignment. But no, I mean, because we've gotten that question a lot. It's like, do you guys know how to authenticate? Because you guys have only done studio auction. You guys get it from the studio. You just put it right up, right? And it's just not that simple. And also, like, some productions, the prop masters aren't necessarily the people at the end of they might be on their next show already. They might have just brought a team in to label the items and make sure, get this off to VIP. Go send these items, label them, and because if you have an international, we have to get a commercial document. So they might be getting all the information and sending it over to us. So we're actually getting more information from the consigners when they're sending us stuff. May not be correct, like we talked about the COA, but it's information that you can use to make the right call and accurately describe the item.
Yeah, it's like in a way an investigation. You kind of piece it all together. Not one piece of it is the defining factor, because I mean, having done a lot of research myself, a COA has been right or wrong, or information I got from a particular crew member, let's say it's a prop master, has been right or wrong, or even the prop maker has been right or wrong about a piece. And then, a set dresser sometimes will verify or, kind of change what that person also recalled. I remember researching my Scorpion masks. I asked Chris Casamassa, who is the actor for Scorpion, I said, how many masks did you guys, have? And he said, I think we had like 7, something like that. And then I talked to the set dresser, and she's like, "Oh no, we had max of 4. Scorpion had the max, so he had 2 hero 2 stunt. Other ones may have had like 1 hero 2 stunt, stuff like that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I would go over to the mask maker, and I'd say, "Hey, what do you remember making?" And you kind of compile it all together, and because not one of it's first of all, that movie was 25 plus years ago, but and sometimes things that are more recent, I mean, they work on so many productions that for them to recall exactly what happened, whether it was yesterday or 5 years ago, they'll even tell you themselves, like, "Hey, do you know how many productions I work on?" And it's like, this is the best information I can recall, so on and so forth. So it's kind of like investigative work. You piece it all together, and it takes a lot of work. A lot of people don't quite understand that. And when we talked the other day, I was impressed that you guys actually do all of that. Because I'm not saying others don't, or whatnot, but it's good to know that you guys actually do go through the same processes that some of us OCD and collectors go through. So no, that's one thing, I really enjoyed about our conversation the other day.
Yeah, you have to be detailed. I mean, yeah, like, so 2 weeks ago we had someone reach out to us, and they had a lot of items from some high productions, some Marvel, some Lord of the Rings stuff, and I'd love to take it, but just from photos, and the auction is in 2 weeks.
Oh,
I sent him back an email. I said, this looks great. I've looked you up personally. You look like you're a credible person in the community. But I'm going to be completely transparent with you. Our auction starts in a month, and our catalog is going up in 2 weeks. So I don't feel confident that we're going to be able to do our research and get this to add this to this auction. But let's have a conversation in June after this auction and get you into our fall one. And he appreciated that. He was like, wow, I don't think a lot of other auction houses may have done that. I think they would have just taken my items and taken my word. So you don't want to make it seem like you're saying like your information might be wrong, but it's just that we want to be 100% whatever we're putting up is accurate, and I didn't feel like we had the time to put in that time to make it accurate. So
yeah, and that is a good thing. And I mean, that's one thing too, is you don't want to just have a big auction to have a big auction, or bigger auction, I should say. You can always push it out. And as from from a collector side, there's other auctions. There's other ways you can sign, but worst case scenario, it just goes to the next auction. And that's and unless they're auction, how I always view auctions, and I have actually never consigned with an auction, but that's just because whenever I sell, it's usually because I have to raise funds immediately for another purchase. So mine are never delayed. So that's how I've always kind of viewed those sales for collectors, is not really to raise funds, but they might be to pad their account or whatever it may be. But it's never like an immediate thing. So that's I've never really seen that as consigners as being like, "Hey, I need this in this auction now." It's always like, "Yeah, I can wait on that." And if they need to sell it now, I mean, there's always the private market or whatever you want to call it.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if Junie tells me, I had to let go of those items, then that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. I'm sure we'll work with them in the future. So, it's just the last thing I want is something in our auction that is we put up incorrectly, because that's on us, and that's our names behind it. We're the ones that put up that incorrectly, so that's on us. So, I mean, the consigner might have gave us information and all this stuff, but that's still our accountability to put up the right information.
Yeah, and one thing, just because I want to, also be good on time, is one thing we talked about that hugely impressed me. I won't be able to repeat it, so I would, I heard what you said, but you're gonna be able to explain it much better. How you guys kind of got started, and your other connections with the studios as well. The other work that you guys do, that I thought was really cool. So if you want to go into that, go for it.
Yeah, I think we get that question a lot. It's like, how do you guys get this stuff? Aren't you guys in Chicago? So my dad, Mark, actually started this in the early 2000s. He's from Chicago, from a suburb of it, and he was in licensing. So he first worked with Fox. So he worked for, let me go back. He worked for a video game company called EGM, Entertainment Gaming Magazine.
Entertainment Gaming Monthly, I think, isn't it? Or is it magazine?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So we worked for them, and they were doing some work with some of the studios. And from there, he got into working with some people at Fox. And from that, he started doing the licensing for all the Fox shows. So he did, if you bought a T-shirt from 24, a mug from 24, Family Guy, all those Fox shows from the early 2000s, he had the e-commerce store for all that Fox merchandise. And basically what happened was Buffy the Vampire Slayer was ending, and my dad was on site. Not sure why he was on site, but they were throwing out some of the items in the dumpster, and my dad was like, "Whoa, what's going on? What are those?" And they're like, "Oh, that's just some props from some of the past seasons that we're just trying to get out of the space." My dad was like, "That is worth money, and that needs to go into the fans. Like, people would appreciate that stuff. That should not be in the dumpster." So my dad went basically dumpster diving and stopping people from throwing them out. It took, obviously, it wasn't that simple. It took a year and a half to Fox to release items and say we could do the auction. And we ended up doing the auction. It did really, really well. And I think the e-commerce business was tough because you're selling 1,000 shirts and it's doing really well, but then you're putting all that money back in to buy 1,000 more shirts, and no one's buying the mugs necessarily, but you have to buy all this different types of merchandise. So I think he was kind of like at that light bulb, like, I think auctions might be a better way to reach the fans. I think they'll appreciate it more because there's a huge market for it, obviously. And so basically we got all Fox's business from there. Worked on multiple other projects like 24 and Angel, and I mean, a ton of projects with Fox. And then that kind of grew to all the other studios that I've worked with over the years. And someone from Fox moved to another studio, they brought us in there, and it kind of just grew from there. And some of the people we were working with 20 years ago might have been at a lower level, but there might be execs at the executive level now. So that's also interesting, because you might have worked with them when they were younger in the industry, and now they're higher up. So that's allowed us to keep those strong connections out in LA, even though we're not necessarily out there.
And you also saying you do some other type of, and I might get this wrong, is it like a transportation or setups or something else for the studios?
Yeah, so that's, thank you. I was like, I totally forgot something in there.
Yeah.
So for MGM and some of our other movie clients, we do all their services. So once they're done filming and once they're wrapped, we actually store all of the items from that movie. So we store that for them. We fully catalog it. This is character A's, change 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. from scenes, whatever. And basically from there, if they need any reshoots, we have a reshoot in the UK. Can you send those out there tomorrow? We usually have like a 2-day notice. And they appreciate that because we know exactly where it is in our warehouse, and we can get that sent out. And we do all the logistics, all the managing of that, and then until they need to send it back to us, and then they may need to send that item out for the actual release and the premiere in LA. So we'll send the items out there to put on display. They might have a marketing event where they're putting it in a theater, in another theater somewhere, or the actor's doing an interview that they want to have some items in the background. So we do all that logistics work for them before the movie's actually released. And then at the end of the day, obviously we market the event to the fans of the show in the auction. So that's something with the movies that they really appreciate, because a lot of studios don't have this team of people that can go run to the other side of LA and go through all these boxes and try to find this one item that they need to send out somewhere. So I think it's pretty easy for them just to send us an email, and we do all that work for them, and they get a check at the end of the day after do the auction. So it's that's something that's very valuable to the studios.
Oh yeah, and I don't think anyone, well maybe a couple people, but I'll kind of blanket statement here. I don't think anyone knew that, which is when you told me the other day, I was like, that is insanely cool, because not only that, it just also adds to the level of the services you guys also offer to the studios, and also to the relationships that you get and how you get these props and so on and so forth. I mean, because I obviously, all of us collectors kind of like, hey, how did they get the inside track? And we appreciate, you guys bringing it. But it's always just been one of those things. It's just curiosity, like, hey, how'd you guys do this? Because I know when I research or I try to find a prop, it's very hard for me just to find like one. It's like find one or even get it authenticated. And I've always kind of wondered, like, big auction houses, how do you guys do it? How do you guys pull it off? So I've always thought that was really cool, and that you guys also offer other services for the studios as well.
Yeah, I think that our technology and our database has allowed us to churn so many items out a year, and we've always had these services using our technology as to get all these studios, and that's something that we want to use going forward with consignment and with our database, giving that access to people, just giving people more information that we have, because we have all this data, all this information about all these items that we've sold for all these years, and that should be shared with the collectors as well. So we'll in the next 6 months, we have a lot of services and other things that I'm not exactly ready to talk about yet. But if you have me on again, we can talk in 6 months from now. But that we have some exciting stuff to really enhance the collector experience.
Are you able to talk about the picture, the little ink that you're going to be doing?
Yes, and that goes back with the COA. We've had tons of situations where people say, "Oh, I lost the COA. Can you reissue it?" Or no one wants to buy my item because I don't have a COA. Can you authenticate my item and issue a COA for me? And this movie's from 25 years ago. I got it from all the stories. I don't have a COA. It didn't give me a COA. I don't even have an LOA, all this stuff. So we're looking in ways to actually mark the items, and with a synthetic invisible ink that can only be seen with our equipment. So essentially, we have a special lens and this synthetic ink that you will not be able to see. And it's a little tiny dot. Like we're taking the end of a safety pin, we've taken out the pointy end of it so it's flat. So you're tiny. You're going to put that dot somewhere on the item, and our camera lens can track where that is put, and then it'll be put in the digital record for us. And this can't be seen with any UV, especially not the naked eye, but also with a UV light. You can't see it. So this will only be able to be, because that's where you go into. It's like you did all that effort, and then anyone can still put a mark on it and say, "Oh, that was VIP did that." So we've tested on multiple materials. Like we obviously were worried about prosthetics, the materials with that. We've done all the testing to make sure it doesn't affect the actual material. And so that'll hopefully be rolled out in the next. My dad would like to get that rolled out now, but we're obviously taking some. We'll take some time to make sure it's absolutely completely safe. First of all, it's not going to affect the item long term and all those things. But it's just another way that allows people to because they have that item. It is the legit item, but some people can't sell items they don't have the COA, and we're just trying to give people other ways to show, hey, I don't have a COA, but this is that item. So we're looking into ways to actually mark the items themselves rather than having a separate piece of paper saying what it is. Because, and sorry, I'm going long, but that's another thing. The COA on a lot of companies, including us, has just the title. That sometimes there's not even quantity on it. So let's say we sold a lot set of, keep using Jack Bauer's Hanes t-shirt, lot set. And some collectors have brought this up to us. They say, well, how many items were in that set? What if, you might have sold 2, but the person is selling 3, and they might sell 2 to someone and then the other one to someone else. So just putting more information on the COA itself, and then having this synthetic ink with the item as well, just gives it more legitimacy that someone can look up more history into it and say, hey, did you do this item? And it allows us to make a confident effort to accurately describe the item. And because this is long-term stuff too. In 20 years from now, there could be 5 sales from there. It's only going to get harder, right? To do all this research, the longer the changing hands of the item, it's only going to get harder to accurately describe items. So having an actual digital record behind it, as well as this ink, it just gives it more ways to accurately describe and say, yep, absolutely, that is that item.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, that's one thing a lot of people also don't take into account. And I covered this on one of my other videos about COAs and LOAs, and that is, a lot of people don't, and I don't ever want to always sound like doom and gloom and whatever it may be, but I've run across a lot of scenarios. I talk to a lot of collectors, and I get a lot of people come to me, and they'll say, hey, what do you think of this item? And the big thing about it is, I've seen every bad scenario happen. And I've seen things where they've given a legitimate COA with a fake prop, and the person just kept the real prop. And that's the big thing with how many times hands have changed. Every single time that goes to a new collector, there's that chance that might happen. And having that lineage, I've always talked about this with other collectors of ways to, hey, how do we keep this lineage intact? And, it's one of those things that's almost impossible to do in a way, but the way you guys are doing it is making it possible. And that's one big thing. Like, when you brought that up to me, that to me, it's so simple, and people are like, oh yeah, anyone can do that, but no one's done it yet. So, even though it's simple and it's a no-brainer, it's definitely, in my opinion, a game changer on provenance and due diligence, especially because most of your items come through the studios, even with the consigned, those, at least starting from VIP, it has its origins there, at least in as much due diligence as possible, starting at that point, and then moving forward, it can be tracked, which is huge.
Yeah. And we've had situations where people say, can you sell the COA, the COA that I got from the person that I bought from? Can you sell that with the item when you do consignment? And we've had situations where the information might not be accurate, or it's just not accurate enough. And it's not that awkward conversation. You have to tell them we can't pass that incorrect information on to the next
Okay.
seller. So that's something, but we will if it's from a reputable auction house and the information is correct, we'll absolutely give it to the person that buys it from us. But if there's situations where they're only selling part of the information that was on the COA, or the information may be incorrect, we don't want to pass that on to the next seller. I know that's a little different. I know some auction houses don't send any of the COAs from prior to them selling it, and some do, but there's reasons for both sides. I don't think anyone's doing it out of spite or anything. I think that everyone has their reasons, but that's the way we do it. If someone asks us if they're bidding on the item, hey, can you show me where do they get the item? We're happy to share that information. Again, I've told you before, we want to make sure everyone gets their questions and feels confident about the item before they even start bidding. Last week, we wanted someone to buy it and then ask us questions, and they're like, well, that's not how I interpreted it. Because we didn't do it out of whatever they were interpreting. We didn't do it out of to deceive them. It's just we may have not put the information in a way that they were looking at it. So We always tell people just ask us questions, because we'll get back to you right away. Just ask us questions if you have anything on an item.
Yeah, and that's one big thing that I know a lot of collectors that have been in this for, I would say even some that have been in it for a short period of time, they just kind of maybe came from another hobby or just were, kind of learned quick. But a lot of, longer term collectors will always say, and I know we've said it probably 50 times during this, video so far, do your due diligence, do your research, and research isn't just go out there and try to find the sources and try to prove whatever wrong. It's reach out to the auction house, reach out to VIP, ask them what information do you have, because they might also have things that you can't find out. It's all about piecing it together, and that's a lot of things that I just don't think people do a lot of. And I do know it's not everyone's priority, or even if they have the time to research, so they do rely on a COA or they do rely on the seller. But to me, it's a lot of money. So I'm going to make time. That's just kind of how I look at it, and it's a reputation thing, especially for you guys, but even me as a collector, I want to be as accurate as I can. And I want to be able to be, also people to trust what I'm saying. And I can only imagine the level of a being, especially someone or a company that's been around for 20 plus years and the connections you guys have, of maintaining that reputation as well. You are more than likely to be more than happy to, retain that reputation by giving that information or by correcting information that was given to you. Just like, we kind of talked about a little bit ago. I just found a little information that, one consigned item that you guys have, and it was just quickly changed, and it was nothing big. It was just like, oh, hey, that's right. And kind of switched. There is no pushback. It wasn't, this is what we say it is. And that was huge. That's a big thing. A lot of people don't understand is you guys are more than happy to hear out the collectors, as long as they're respectful and they have information. That's one big thing too, is, if someone is just an ass and they reach out to you guys and they're like, you're lying about this, whatever, I could see you guys not being as happy to accommodate them.
Yeah, as long as they're right, we'll still make the change.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's
might not be happy with their attitude, but if they're right, I mean, they're right. We might ask them to come a little less threatening next time. But I get why some people come in threatening sometimes, because they've probably maybe dealt with other auction houses or other people, other collectors, and they're expected to have that fight. But that's what I'm saying. The last thing we want is someone to buy an item and then be disappointed, because then we have to, because if we're wrong, we will refund you. So that's what people need to realize too. So if we're wrong, we will do everything we can to make you happy. I know you'll be still mad, but I always ask, just ask the question before, so we don't get a situation where we've sent you the item already and then you're upset about something. And especially if we were wrong. I mean, that's the last thing I want.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just, a lot of people don't understand. There's also in the private world, you've heard of people that they shipped it out. Let's say they did the PayPal transaction. You have friends and family, and then the other end of it, I think they say, hey, this is fake, and then they do a claim through PayPal. And even though the item was legitimate, that's just their way of then getting the item and then getting their money back. And there's a lot of bad scenarios out there. What do you collect? Do you have any pieces yourself, or?
Can't tell from my all my Ragnar swords and my Stargate.
If you had Ragnar swords back there, I would not be happy.
No, we unfortunately did not get those. No, I don't have any personal pieces, actually. I don't. I'm sure I will one day, but this,
so like I said on the. Sorry, real quick, I was going to get this in there. I just remember on our phone call, I was like, so you're one of the good drug dealers. You don't use your own product. And so,
don't use your own product.
Yeah.
No, we've always gotten items from studios, and the partnership with them, our agreement is to sell it. So we've never personally held on to anything. And I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll get a display as good as yours is behind you one day. But for right now, yeah, And yeah, we'll just say I don't use my own product. I'm just yeah. I'm gonna use that going forward.
Yeah, yeah, that's. I mean, I've always, you always hear that like in the movies or whatnot about, drug dealers, and that's like the first mistake is, drug dealer using their own product and cutting into their margins and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, I've always kind of wondered that, I don't think really anyone knows about any of the major prop dealers out there, auction houses, you know, do the owners actually collect? I know some do, some don't. And I do know your guys' agreement with the studios where, you do have to sell it. I mean, that is part of the agreement. I just, I was, in a way, I was hoping you had Ragnar swords hidden back there.
You could yell at
But,
me.
yeah, so I could yell at you, but then also try to buy them. Um, we kind of talked about that a little bit, where you said the armor just didn't quite understand that those were the items that collectors probably would have wanted more, and they repurposed them for the new series. And so, yeah, that's if you want to go into that a little bit.
No, it might have not been his decision. Um,
You're right. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they were great. I mean, we went over to Ireland in the summer of 2018. If you can, so that was so think how long we've been. We've been in the process of getting these items. So that was almost 2 years ago. We went to Ireland to try to get this project, and it was really cool because they were filming season 6. So they had all the sets set up, thousands of extras with all the armor, each has an individual bamboo sword and everything, shields. So we saw they had this almost like a pool. That's where they did all the sales, all the film scenes. So they had like a pool, and they actually had a lake too. So I'm sure they used that lake. They had a huge space for all these giant battles, and they built kingdoms. Like the Roos Kingdom was there, and Cat's all that was just so detailed. And it was because I watched Vikings. I obviously don't watch everything that comes through our doors, but Vikings is a show that I've always watched. So that was a really cool, like I was like a fan going into the rather than like being a business sense. I was like, oh, that's awesome. And they're just trying to like go through the set.
I'm jealous.
Yeah, no, that is some cool stuff we were able to do. But where was I going with this? I don't even know what did you ask me?
I was just saying about not getting as many weapons for Vikings.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I was getting at was we ended up getting all the armor and all the wardrobe and props and things like that. But the weapons were something that would have done. I mean, it would have been so cool to be able to offer in the auctions, and they did end up repurposing a lot for the Valhalla series, which we see a lot. If there's a sequel of a TV show or a sequel of a movie, they sometimes want to hold on to that if there's ever a flashback or just to save costs in a sense. But we try to explain to them that the fans will really appreciate that, and you'll make a return, which is which is ultimately what they look at it. It's a business. We would make more money off of the sale of that, and we can buy another item. That also loses that. I mean, Ragnar's sword, like that should be kept that way for forever. But
it should be right back there.
It should be right, exactly. So, and we deal with that from time to time, and you can explain it to them, but sometimes it's out of their hands, and sometimes they just don't want to sell it. So we've had those situations, and we can't sell these actors' items and all that. So you deal with that, but we sell what we can.
No, I'm just appreciative of that. I mean, I definitely got some stuff, and I'm actually down here. This is actually for my wife. This is part of it. This is Lagatha's shield.
Yeah.
So Lagatha, that's her favorite character, and she was like, I gotta get a shield, and so that's actually hers.
What's that?
Does she collect too?
No, she only has a couple things. It's more just things that she really connects to. That she has, from Molly's game, one of the poker cards, and then she actually, the actual character that they did based it off of, the actual Molly character. She went to one of her speeches or whatnot and had her sign the prop card and stuff like that. So she has a few little items. She has a Wonka bar, and because she loves that. But anything big, that's her biggest piece, and that's like her favorite. And she's always told me that's never going.
That's a long. She has a Willy Wonka bar. Like that's a huge item.
Oh yeah, well, it's from the newer movie, so those only go for a couple hundred.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah,
those.
those. I wish it's from the original. I don't think she'd. And she's pretty frivolous with money in general for her, and so if anything's over a couple $100, she's not going for it. But that shield, she's like, I don't care how much it goes for, we're getting it. So yeah, that's her baby. Um, and then just because I know there's a huge fan base for this, and it was a huge auction for you guys, the Ash versus Evil Dead, especially those Necronomicons. I mean, do you have any stories with that, or do you have any memories with doing that auction? Because I just know that was a big one.
yeah, yeah. So that was so they filmed that down in New Zealand, and it was Australia, one of the two. And I mean that we have a partnership with a global deal with Stars, so we get all their TV shows. And Ash vs Evil Dead came up, and we didn't go down there actually for that one, but we did FaceTimes with the team daily almost. Like, do you guys want this? Do you guys want this? This is that, and we're taking all these items. This is awesome. All these prosthetics, and this shows this. I love the show, and they sent us all the items, and they left out the Necronomicon books and the boomsticks. We're like, where are those? And we're like, oh, we're looking, and then it kind of like fell off. And then a month later, they're like, do you guys want those the boomsticks, the Necronomicons? We're like, yes, absolutely, send that over. So they sent those over, and those all did extremely well. I mean, that Necronomicon book is our I would say one of our highest selling items. We sold one of them for over 35,000.
Yeah, and I think the lowest was probably like 15 or something ridiculous.
Yeah, we sold a few. So they're kind of all across the board, all for very high values, obviously. But the funny thing on the 35,000 one was, it I want to say like the last day it was at maybe like 10,000. So we're like, okay, that's high. It's probably going to go for around the other ones that sold around 15 to 25. And then the last like 30 minutes, it just kept going up, and we're like, wow, this is going high. And the bidder didn't have any. They might have not had any feedback. On eBay it said like their score.
Yeah, and has like a 0. Yeah.
That always scares us, because that always used to scare us, because sometimes it was legit. It was just a fan that's never bought anything on eBay, and we've had multiple successful transactions. But if there's a bad egg, it might be someone that has that 0 feedback. So it's going up and up, and people were contacting Elaine on Facebook, like, is this legit? Or sometimes, because sometimes like people just start bidding things up, which we've had to deal with. And Elaine's like, what do we do? Should we like delete their bid? And we're like, well, let's just see. Like, don't do anything. Like, let's just see what happens. And in the last second, because they don't have extended bid on eBay, so the last second one goes to 35,000, and we're like, oh my gosh, that went so high. Like, we're just like praying this person's going to pay, because my we usually send the studio like right away, like the sales information. Let's just hold off on this and let's just see what happens. And it ended up selling to they're a well-known person, so it was kind of a cool story. Once he reached out, we're like, okay, he's legit. He has a lot of like this actually. So that auction was so fun. It was 8 weeks, and every week just so fun to watch the auctions and how excited everyone was and watching that. That was a fun summer. Did you get anything for that one?
No, and that was and because I just came in late to the game on that one, and completely honest, I actually didn't even watch the series until the auction came out. I didn't even know it was kind of out there, and because I just in general, I wouldn't say I do a lot of zombie movies or shows and whatnot. And when I saw the auction going, I was like, hey, I want to check it out. And by the time I got through it, I was very upset that I didn't get into it earlier. But I also knew a couple of my friends were huge Ash collectors, and I knew I'd be bidding directly against them too. And it's kind of one of those things where in our hobby, it's kind of like, hey, I know that person wants it more, and I'm not going to be, an ass and bid against them. And, it'll pop up some other time down the road. So I kind of like stood out of it near the end there. But I do kind of want to get a piece here and there in the future, but I've noticed everyone's holding on to that stuff like crazy. And I think, didn't like a glove just pop up or something?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I haven't seen
Yeah.
it.
I think that,
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was gonna say diehard fans. That's the thing about that is they grabbed all that and they just kept it.
They're right, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't lie and say we knew it was going to do that well. Like, because sometimes we know if because we have all the sales history, so we can look at different factors into what an item is going to sell for. But we did not expect that to do that well. I would never lie and say, oh yeah, we knew that it was going to do that well. Like, that did way over our expectations. So that was a really fun auction.
Oh yeah, I just kind of enjoyed watching it. Seeing the numbers kind of go crazy because I know before that you guys had what, like Tomb Raider, and then before that it was like Black Sails or whatever those switched. And I know Black Sails, those kind of went higher than people expected on some items. And then Spartacus a while ago. I know some of those swords went for a decent amount and some of the costumes, but that was a pretty long running auction I remember you guys having, is because you guys had a lot of costumes on that one.
And a lot of weapons too.
Yeah.
Weapons from that one. It's always interesting when we sell like 1,000+ items from the show, and then you don't see a lot of it come out. And but it is also kind of nice to see in a sense. Maybe not for some collectors, they want those items, but that they actually wanted to keep it. That those fans actually appreciate those, and hopefully they're somewhere in their house somewhere. But and they'll come on the markets at some point, I'm sure. But
yeah, usually things come around. I mean, here and there's a percentage that always kind of just drop off. They end up in someone's storage unit and they kind of forget about it, or it's one of those one-time collectors. They just really wanted that piece and they never plan on parting with it. It definitely happens. And I guess, is there anything else you wanted to talk about that I might be forgetting from our phone call? Something else you wanted to drop, or any other future stuff VIP is going to be doing, or any other, cool technology things that you guys are going to be implementing here soon? I mean, you've got the floor.
I think we covered most of it for the most part. We're going to be launching a membership program to give people more access and information. So that'll be coming in the next 6 months as well. And if you have me on again, we can probably talk more detail into that. And we do have some movies coming up once they actually release in August. So look out for our studio auctions are coming back. But our spring event starts May 11th and is going to Friday, May 21st. And we're actually doing something really cool with that. Last day on that Friday, we're doing a live stream that's going to be concurrent with the auction.
Oh.
I think they'll be okay with this, but Mark and James are going to be kind of like a behind the scenes on that final day of the auction to talk about some items that they like the most in the auction, and looking at some results, as well as we're going to be showing items up close. And it's kind of it'll be cool. I don't know if you watched any of those car auctions, like those Mecom or anything on like NBC.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily like the auction won't be a live stream, but it's kind of like behind the scenes of it. And it won't be on the level of NBC, but I think it'll be something that's cool that people, if they want to, they can watch while they're bidding on the items, kind of see what they're saying and seeing some up close items, getting some more information on the items while they're bidding. And the only other thing I'd like to mention is that we're partnering with a theater around us to display some items before the auction. So we'll start doing more exhibits, and we'll do some video content so people that can't fly in or drive there will be able to see the items before they go up for auction. And we are looking into doing live auctions in the future. So we have a ton of changes, things that are coming, and we're just listening to the market. I mean, I go on those movie props group and other Facebook groups all the time, trying to read through the threads and just see what people are talking about. And I think we have a lot of things we're improving every day. I mean, 6 months ago, we didn't even have our own website, to do our auctions, and we've added tons of different features and allowing people to get the items that they love. And we'll continue to grow from here, hopefully for years to come. So that's kind of all I have to say. I just have a question for you.
That's not how this goes.
Where do you see the collectible in our space, the movie props, going in the next 10 years?
So I have my own theories and ideas on this, and I'm actually writing a script on this. But I'm more than happy to go into it. So I've been paying attention, kind of looking back, and as you know, you saw like why do we collect the video I did. I love the psychology behind it, and I also are in other hobbies as well. So I kind of see, I guess I would say I take those databases and I also apply it to this as well. And I noticed one big thing is generational. With you guys doing studio auctions, it wouldn't, that piece of it wouldn't be as visible as you guys doing the consignment. And what I say by that is, I don't have the exact numbers on me now, but for example, if you use Star Wars, for example, the original trilogy props, 10 years ago, those would hit, and that's when props weren't selling as much or for as much in dollar wise. Star Wars Stormtrooper helmets would go for massive numbers. I think one even sold for like 250,000 back then. And they're still selling for big numbers, obviously, but nowhere near that now. And you're starting to see some of, for example, I grew up with the prequels. Even though I love the original trilogy, saw those before the prequels. I was talking to Jacob, who is also in Movie Relics, about this the other day, and he was saying that he actually like his first Star Wars experience was those prequels, and he thinks those are better than the originals, which is crazy. And I probably just outed him for the entire community, but
he's going to get some angry calls from that.
Oh yeah, and I'll let him deal with that all on his own. But I definitely saw that bus coming, and I just pushed him in front of it just now. But so, but it's good to kind of like understand that, because a lot of things, for example, I obviously watched Indiana Jones when I was a kid, but that wasn't what I grew up with. That wasn't embedded into my head when I was, a nostalgic, growing up. It's what's going to be coming up. And also another thing too, is my generation, which I think you're probably closer to my age, is we grew up with things like Mortal Kombat and, other franchises like that are similar to that we're now coming into money. We're now no longer living off of, our parents paying our cell phone bills and in college. We're now having, solid careers, solid jobs, buying houses, having that discretionary money. And what things that were literally embedded into our brains psychologically back when we were kids are now, as you can tell, they're starting to do reboots of those. That's what I see is going to start coming up in value. And then the things that are previous to our generations are going to start declining. One big thing I noticed, for example, like when I, do fossils, is a lot of collectors that collected, were dealers that sold mostly to certain collectors. Those collectors started hitting retirement age, and they're going off fixed income, and all of a sudden those common buyers they had were going away, and then they had to start accommodating to the newer collectors. And I kept telling them earlier, I was like, hey, you should probably start incorporating the newer collectors earlier. And they're just happy to take their older collectors' money. And, like I said, once they got into that fixed income, collecting is no longer their priority. Making their money last till they die is their priority. And that's one thing what I, for a long time there, I kept telling some of the other, longer term collectors, I was like, I really see Mortal Kombat coming up. And they're like, yeah, okay. And so, it was, and I was like, good for me, because then I get to buy all this stuff, and I don't have really a lot of competition. And now it's hard. Prices for them are really going up. Finding them is really hard. I'm finding out, I'm not the first person to talk to people anymore. And I'm starting to kind of see that trend go up. Same with Power Rangers. I mean, that's one big thing too. The prices of those have skyrocketed in the last just couple of years. And that's just because it's our generation now that's kind of coming into the market and coming in with, a deeper pocketbook. So that's where I see on the trend of valuation. But then as a hobby in general, and we talked about this a little bit, about how this is actually art that we just don't even understand yet. And, Like back when Da Vinci was around, yeah, he was famous and popular, but nowhere near that he is today. I mean, you could commission his work and he may not finish it, which he was notorious for, but he was, he'd be commissioned. He was an artist just like anyone else. He lived, contract to contract kind of thing. But what we don't really realize is because the movie phenomenon or, technology is newer within the last 150 years, props are, we just kind of still view them as studios viewed them 20 years ago, where they would just throw them away, like you said. We don't quite appreciate them to the level that they will be appreciated 20, 30, 50 years from now. And so that's kind of where I see of, with some people, I would say modifying props or painting over original pieces, or maybe adding in a bunch of replica pieces to the display and kind of diluting what the real piece is. I kind of see that dropping off a little bit. I see people starting to preserve these better, starting to take care of them better, starting to understand and see the art that they actually are. And that's being represented in the auctions. I mean, look at the prices, pieces have been going for the past 10 years. And, I think, this is just going to keep growing. And I think it's going to turn into later on down the road at like we view, paintings and other artwork we see today. I just don't see how that wouldn't happen. If once people start seeing these things in person, for example, like that 1986 Alien's head, it looks amazing in photos. I mean, it looks amazing in any case, but when you see it in person, that thing it's gorgeous. Anytime I ever show anyone, like someone comes to the house and they look at it and they're like, wow, they actually did a lot of work and detail into that. And, that's one thing too. A lot of people don't realize until they have it in their hands, how much work and how much artistry and skill it actually takes to make these things. And I just think over time, this is going to grow, and it's going to grow into something kind of like, the art world. And I know there's been a couple articles already written that they're saying it is considered modern day art, and it's going to keep growing. But I think with our generations growing up more around pop culture, that's going to be something more important, because right now I don't care about a Da Vinci. I mean, I think it's cool and I respect it, and I respect the history behind it, but I want to collect things that were important to me when I was a kid. And that's, generational. And I think that, we grew up around pop culture. That's what's going to be important to us in the future. And that's going to be passed on, and so on and so forth. So I just think the movie prop industry is just going to keep going up, and it's going to, slightly change in what the industry or the genres, but that's what I think. Long-winded. And that was it.
You're absolutely right. I think, we look at franchises, things that were popular in the 80s, 90s, and they're coming back today, because all the people with the money now, they loved those when they were kids, and now they have the money to pay towards that. So I think we're seeing that a lot with franchise, whether it was from a graphic novel. You'll see that with all the studios are doing that. They're bringing, okay, what books were really popular in the 90s, early 2000s. Let's make a show about it. Like that, it makes sense. Because people that were fans of it when they're kids are going to be into it when they're older as well. So that was a good point. And the prices is always interesting to me, because something that's sold for, because I was looking at, because we just added to our website, like just added some of our top selling items. And I was looking back at, I was like, we did some huge shows in the early 2000s. Let's go look at those sales prices. I mean, like 2024, for example, some of those Jack Bauer stuff, or Buffy the Vampire Slayer, et cetera. And it's crazy what they sold for, because if they were sold today, I mean, it's funny because we didn't add a lot of those. We probably still should have, but it doesn't reflect what the actual value is today. So it was, that was like an eye opener, because it's easy to say, oh yeah, things sell higher today. To actually quantify it and see the difference, what it was selling for back then and what it would be today, was really, really interesting. And the last point you brought up about modifying the item, I think it's interesting because the people that have it now, these are going to live on hopefully forever. So you're more of just a keeper of the item. So it's important to keep that originality of it, and at least keeping that information of how it looked on screen. And I understand restoration to an extent. So, but that is a thing that, so I wasn't the first one that said that, but I've heard that from someone else. And I was like, that's a very good point. You know, you're holding it right now, but you're one day are not going to be the one ultimately to have it. And that might go change hands multiple times. So, that's always interesting to think about the long term of this. And when you said on the phone the other day, just how people think of it right now, they don't think about it long term and what it's going to become necessarily. So it'll be really, really interesting.
Yeah, and that's you know, because I love history and I love documentaries, and I was watching some on Da Vinci, and you know they said his pieces were significant back then, but they don't view them anywhere near we do now. You know, they're some of the, I think that one, and I'm going to get the history on this wrong, but the general idea is correct. They that think that $450 million Da Vinci that I just sold, it was found in an art auction in like Mississippi or something, you know, in like terrible condition, and I think it's been repainted over once previously. And they first thought it was like one of Da Vinci's proteges, or you know, something else did it, and they bought it, I don't know, like $7,000 or something like that. And then it sold in another auction for like 90 million, something ridiculous. And then it still was rough, I think, from that point. And then they just almost kind of repainted almost over the whole thing. And they got a lot of slack for that, because they said, you're just trying to chase a huge number and you're kind of ruining this original artwork. And then it sold for 450 million, and now it's kind of disappeared. So I think it went somewhere in Dubai. I know it was Middle East. And I think it was supposed to be displayed at some big art house over there, and that was the whole purpose of them spending so much. And then since they bought it, it disappeared. And you know, so even just in general, I love kind of like tracking all this stuff. You know, I love seeing where it goes, because a lot of people don't understand. And the reason why, for example, I love the movie Troy so much is that is, to me, a very cool reenactment of maybe how it really would have happened during the Odyssey, you know, the Iliad. And, you know, I was like, I don't care who played the character Achilles, even though it was Brad Pitt, who's an awesome actor. I was like, I have to have his sword. Like, you know, just to have a piece of our modern day recreation of the Battle of Troy, Achilles being, you know, the greatest warrior ever, that, you know, obviously in myth. But I was like, I have to have a sword. Like, it's one of those things that, and now it's a representation of that character. And a lot of people also don't understand that too, is so much stuff that, let's say they were even buying like 1600s artwork or whatever it may be. That's their modern day interpretation of what they feel like. Let's say it's something about Christianity. It's like a, you know, some kind of painting. That's their modern day interpretation. That's their modern day prop during that time. And what a lot of people understand where this is going to go, you know, and that's one thing is, you know, so when I get pieces, I try to do little to no restoration at all. If anything, I just put it on a bland display, and, you know, I just kind of try to keep it at that. And I try to research as much as I can, add documentation to it. And that's really, you know, kind of just for me in the sense, you know, the background of it, but I try to share that when I do my posts. But that's just one thing I think it will start happening more. And I also think people should start doing more. I think hiding a lot of information when someone says, hey, you know, can you give me the due diligence you did on this? And someone says, oh, no, I can't give out that information. That's one thing I think should stop happening moving forward, is because the history does belong with the prop. It doesn't belong with the dealer or the seller and monopolize that and just say, just trust me. I think that information should be passed along, because that it belongs to that piece. It doesn't belong to you, you know, and that's one thing. I don't know if it's going to go in that direction. I hope it goes in that direction. But that's just one thing that I noticed in the hobby today. It's the information is not passed along, and you constantly have to do your own research. And yeah, so that's my opinion on that. But
yeah, and I think, and if you're going to do work you have to point that out.
Yeah.
If you add and I understand if you have it on display, you want to make it look better. That's fine. But you do have to point that out, especially if you're going to sell that. That's not what it originally looked like on screen, because you do need to do your own research, but it shouldn't be that hard, right? It should
Yeah.
be impossible to find this information. So I think giving people more information in general is just going to be more important going forward in the next year to 5 years, 10 years, and going forward.
Oh yeah, I mean fossils. I always go to that because to me they're like the most meticulous collectors because they're also very close to the scientific community of paleontologists, and so even the collectors kind of go around the same methodologies and processes that they do. I mean, if let's say a fossil's restored, you're gonna get every picture along the way of that restoration, and you're gonna not. I mean, right up front in that sale, most of the time they're gonna say it's 30% restoration, and they'll have pictures of where it's restored and you'll get all that up front. Like you don't even have to ask for it. And they say, hey, I wanted to complete it. Here's the rest restored pieces, so on and so forth. And there's no questions, and you get the exact locality up to usually the ranch that was dug up from. And if the information's still with it, the digger that dug it up, and you have all this information, and it's really very detailed, and that's where I come from mostly. So when I do all my research on this, people are like, man, you ask a lot of questions. I'm like, well, yeah, like I want to find out a lot. I might be asking too many, but, I want to document this. I want to make sure everything's right up as much as I can find. And, if I'm wrong, I'll definitely change it. I have no problem with that. But yeah, that's my philosophy on research is it's not, eventually you're going to die. And so, even if you have it to your death, it's unless there's some miracle thing that, we figure out with I don't know, whatever we can do with that. But, eventually that piece is going to be passed on. So, at least just document it, whether you just keep it to you or not, at least have it with it. But, yeah, that's where I see the hobby going and where I want it, where I want some shifts to be made. Just because that's how other hobbies do it too. I mean, it's not just fossils. I mean, you go into any hobby, you can get almost the full lineage of what you're buying. Baseball cards, whatever it is. There's usually lineage cars. I'm a car person. You'll know the exact history of that, pretty much of who's owned it, where it's been restored, how much it's been restored, every detail on it. I mean, but I have noticed in the props, it's kind of they keep their cards close to their chest, and it's a trust thing, and I just think it should be a little more open, in my opinion. But
I agree. That was a good answer on the spot.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Sorry, like I said, this is what I do when I write, those videos. It's I kind of just ramble it off onto a script, and then I kind of fine tune it from there, because I just have so many thoughts going on in my head, and it's a lot of it. I know a lot of people don't want to hear a lot of it, so I kind of filter it out. Like you were talking on that, why do we collect video? It was like 3 times longer when I initially did it, and I was like, no one's gonna want to watch this forever, so I cut it down to whatever 10 minutes it was. But yeah, I am a very detail oriented OCD type person, and oh yeah, but no, and I've go ahead.
No, go.
I was actually just gonna say, hey, I appreciate your time and give you your day back. But if you had something else to say, go for it.
That was it. I was just going to say, we get that the last thing, there's the OCD and the detailed thing. I think people maybe think we're over the top on that, but which we probably are, but it makes us feel better about it, what we put onto the site. So it might make people annoyed if you're asking too much questions, but at the end of the day, I don't feel bad because you got to put out the right information. So
yeah. Yeah, no, and that's hugely appreciated, especially a collector like me. That's a lot of, first of all, it's a lot of due diligence I don't have to do, but it's also how much more confident I am going into that purchase. And, that's a lot. Even you could do as much research as you want. There's always a small little hidden fear if you're buying from a, dealer or auction house, whatever it is, that's just not reputable. And even though you're so confident in your research, there's still that little piece of you. It's like, God, I wish it wasn't sold through that one person, and, there is that. So the fact that it comes through VIP, it adds so much credibility and, reassurance to the buyer that it started out, or at least it passed through VIP. I mean, that is a huge thing. So that is appreciated, how much research you guys do, and also your transparency on this video with explaining how you guys have to verify things. And there are errors. I mean, it's ran by humans. That's inevitable. It's going to happen. But your willingness to also correct it, change it, and correct that mistake, or I wouldn't even say mistake, but update it with the new information that you have.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but absolutely, really appreciate that. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and I appreciate your time. I know we went way over what we were supposed to do, and we started late because of my haircut. So, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I'll let you get your day back. I know you're ahead of time on me, and I know, quick little plug in here for you guys. I'll be doing another video with Mark here in a couple days on the auction. We're kind of figuring out what's going to happen to that, letting Mark figure that out, and but that'll be awesome as well. So it'll be another VIP video coming up here soon, and I appreciate your time once again. It's been awesome, and I appreciate that. Elaine connected us, and she's been my VIP person. She's awesome. So this is props to her on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, and I'd love to come on again and talk to you again. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it.